Hello and welcome to another Scribewire Q&A podcast along with longtime Dodger beat writer Tony Jackson. I am Phil Stone, and another interesting week. Off-season's kind of gotten off to a slow start. General managers are in Orlando right now, but really not much news coming out of that. Are you hearing anything from the meetings?
No, other than, what you read on Twitter, which is not quite as crazy as what you see on Twitter from the winter meetings in a couple of weeks. I mean, that's basically just the winter meetings are just a rumor fest. Mostly the general managers meetings are used for initial contact with agents, free agents, and other teams about what they might be looking for this guy or that guy. I'm sure the Tampa Bay front office has met with a lot of other front offices about David Price, and I'm sure Scott Boras is there. I saw several guys posted photos of his media scrum the other day, and there was probably about 30 guys around him, and he made some bizarre comments like comparing Mets to NASA or something like that. It's kind of winter meetings light is what the GM meetings are, and I don't expect a whole lot to come out of there. Although you've already seen like Nick Punto sign with the Oakland A's and a few little things like that. So, yes. But I don't expect any major news to come out of there.
Unfortunately, the Dodgers are losing Nick Punto. He was a valuable member of the team this year, but I believe he's going to be 37 next year, and so he moves on to Oakland. He's a type of guy the Oakland A's usually try to covet, especially with the young players that they have.
Yeah, and it's not it's certainly not a devastating loss on the lines of, say, when you lose Adrian Beltre to free agency after 2004. So, it's one of those things. Well, he was a good player for the team, and now they'll find another good player.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get to a question that we got from Lisa this week. She basically wants to know, will Don Mattingly last the whole year as Dodger manager? And one thing we do know, aside from the fact that they are talking about a multi-year extension for Donnie, is that he will be managing this year. The question is, will he manage the whole season? I would think that has to do with how the team does, don't you, Tony?
Well, no, I think he's good for 2014 because he's going to get a contract extension. It's just a matter of finalizing the agreement, and they're clearly working on it now. And Donnie even mentioned that on MLB Network the other day on the Manager of the Year show when he said things are going good. So he's going to be okay for 2014 and probably beyond. My guess, if I had to guess, is it'll be a 3-year deal that'll run through 2016. And so I think he's good for a while. Even if they have a horrible season next year and things just fall apart, I think he's good for 2014. And then I think the earliest he would be fired, they'd have to have a really bad 2014 and then get off to a bad start in 2015, and then maybe you buy him out for a year and a half. But I don't see him. I see him managing the team for a long time.
Well, you of course said recently that these contracts for managers are more about severance pay. It's basically managers are hired to be fired, so the money that they get, usually if they last the contract, if they don't last the contract, which oftentimes happens, is about how much money he's going to get on the back end after he gets let go, so the buyout. Yeah, I believe the players like Don. I don't think Don's had the backing of upper management all the time. I think Ned has always backed him, but I'm not so sure everyone else does upstairs. And we'll see if they give him the backing to do what he wants to do. Assuming Yasiel Puig, of course, is still on the team. Already hearing people are talking to the Dodgers about potentially having interest in Yasiel Puig. But certainly Mattingly, based on statements, certainly his postseason presser, didn't feel like he had the backing of management to do what he wanted to do with Yasiel Puig. Hopefully, in signing this contract, he will at that point be able to, maybe give Puig a little more tough love than he got last year.
Yeah, and it just seemed to me like he was between a rock and a hard place, and it seemed like a lot of people in the organization are just afraid of Puig. It's like they're afraid he's going to go into shutdown mode if they offend him too much. And I just think they got to rein this guy in one way or another. And there are ways to do it. Maybe you sit him for a few days and let him get the message. So but at some point it's going to have to be done.
Yeah, one of the problems with Puig is that since he wasn't trained through their system, they don't necessarily have the most incredible feel for the guy as to his personality. And I think they have a better one now. He played almost a full season with him, but he was an unknown quantity, not only in skill, but in personality for a long time. And I think they probably, hopefully, have a better gauge now on how to handle him going into next season, assuming, of course, he is there next season. I wonder, the Puig situation, a lot of fans have they're very pro Puig. I noticed that you get more hits to the blog when you write a story about Puig than, say, about almost anyone else on the team.
Yeah, definitely.
Fans are definitely, polarized when it comes to their opinion of him. I kind of wonder, though, how would the fans feel if Puig was on another team?
Yeah, how would they feel if he was on the Giants?
Oh, well, I think I know how they'd feel about that, but
some of the stuff that he does that rubs other teams the wrong way to the degree that it does, and then fans, Dodger fans will quick to jump in and say, well, there goes Puig having too much fun again, or somebody's going to take offense to that. They'll make all these sarcastic comments about other teams' reactions to some of the things Puig did. That's the one thing I wish every Dodger fan would ask themselves is, what if he was playing for another team doing these exact same things against the Dodgers? How would I react to it in that case? And I think that's the litmus test. And if you can honestly say to yourself, I wouldn't have a problem with it, then you're good. Your opinion is valid. But if you put it to that test and you say, yeah, that would really offend me, and it wouldn't, at that point, then you have to stop and ask yourself, well, maybe the Dodgers should rein this guy in a little bit. Maybe some of the stuff he does is kind of unnecessary and superfluous, and has a negative impact on his game. So that's the test I wish all the Dodger fans would put themselves to when they're sort of blindly defending Puig. And I'm not saying they all blindly defend him. Some of them do look at it logically, but I also think, the nature of sports fans is that you're going to blindly defend your guy, no matter who he is, no matter what he does, and so that's why I hope Dodger fans are coming at this from a logical standpoint.
Well, as a Dodger fan, first, of course, I can say for myself that I haven't just blindly defended him. There have been moments where I shook my head at some of the things that he did, whether it was missing a cutoff man, of course, which he's famous for, or staring at a ball he launches that ends up maybe not leaving the yard that he thought might have left the yard, such as the one in the playoffs. And I'm, as a fan, I'm supposed to be happy with the fact that he hit a triple over on an opposite field shot that Carlos Beltran pretty much misplayed. Probably could have caught the ball, didn't catch the ball, but because Puig stared at it for a couple minutes, not minutes, but seconds, before running at full speed, he cost himself what may have actually been an inside the park home run because Beltran misplayed the ball. And if he was running that play out, granted, Dodgers won that game. He had a triple. It was exciting, got the crowd going, and that's terrific. But my only issue with him, quote unquote, having fun is when it's at the cost of something on the field. I couldn't care less if he stares at a ball that he hits 50, 60 feet over the fence. That's fine. If he's willing to take, a pitch to the head in his next at bat, that's up to him. If a pitcher finds fault. But I don't mind him having fun. This is baseball. It's a kid's game. But when it starts affecting the results on the field, then I have a problem with it, especially when he's making all that money.
Yeah, and really, of all the things he did, the only one that really offended me was, and I think I wrote about it on the blog the other day, was Game 5 of the NLCS in the ninth inning when he misplayed that fly ball, and then his reaction to misplaying the fly ball was what really, that was when I said, these guys have to do something about this guy. I mean, he just sort of
walked to it.
Yeah, he walked to it, and it wasn't more than 4 or 5 steps. And Matt Holliday was probably going to get a double either way, and he got a double. But it was a complete disrespect of the game, and that's the thing that they can't allow to happen. And you know what? The Cardinals got back in the game that inning, and if I don't have my scorecard in front of me, but I feel like they got the tying run to the plate.
They had the tying run at the plate in that inning. They did.
And that's, that it was a 4-run lead, but it was still a very blowable lead. And Puig sort of acted like there was no sense of urgency to anything, and he let his frustrations get the best of him.
Yeah. Bottom line is he probably should have caught the ball, and he and he misplayed it and didn't react the way he should have to the misplay as far as getting it in as fast as he could. Like I said, it didn't cost the Dodgers or the Cardinals a base. Once he didn't catch the ball, Holiday was going to be on second base. But I agree, it's the laissez-faire attitude on the field, and the fact that some people see him sort of dogging it in between pitches where he's not really set, he's not ready, he's sort of moping. Maybe the last play didn't go his way, and so look, Puig's. I've written about it. Puig's a great talent, and this guy has a chance to be a great ball player, a truly a top 10 ball player in this league. But as I said before, I will say it again. The difference between him becoming Lastings Millage or Andrew McCutchen is coachability. And if he's not coachable, he's not going to be what he could be, which is a top 10 player in the league.
Yeah. And the guy that more comes to my mind is Milton Bradley. Two different issues. I mean, Puig doesn't have the anger management issues that Milton Bradley had, but their own, in a lot of ways, they're both their own worst enemies, and they both can't get out of their own way. And that's kind of the comparison that I tend to draw.
And Milton Bradley was also talented player.
Yes, and a guy who never really reached his full potential because he couldn't get out of his own way.
Exactly. But, of course, we're saving the best for last. The news, of course, yesterday that, as expected, the best pitcher in baseball won the National League Cy Young Award. I actually call Kershaw Cy Kershaw from now on because case could be made he might have been able to win it the year before when R.A. Dickey had the a year from who knows where because he never pitched that well before. But again, Clayton Kershaw proves he is the best pitcher in the game. He almost won unanimously. He didn't. And you have an article or a blog today on the site talking about fan reaction to him not winning it unanimously.
Yeah, fan reaction to him getting 29 first-place votes as opposed to 30 first-place votes.
Yeah, for shame.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and read about that. But, Tony, you had some comments about it.
Yeah, and it's like, one of the things that was disappointing to me was some comments that came through on my Twitter feed about, I happened to mention on Twitter that this guy who didn't vote for him was a friend of mine from Cincinnati when I, used to work there. And so the reaction to this was I got several tweets back just calling this guy every name in the book. And, from people who don't even know the guy, who don't know anything about the guy. And the thing about this balloting is, the voting pool has thinned over the years for a lot of reasons. A lot of papers aren't letting their guys vote anymore. A lot of papers have gone belly up, so you don't have as many newspaper guys anymore. And, so you're having to dip further down into that pool, and you're now getting a lot of guys who don't see nearly as many games as a voter ought to see. This guy sees around, I think he's at almost every home game, not quite, so he probably sees around 78 to 75 to 78 games a year. And these are the people that you have voting largely now. I looked at the voters for that National League Cy Young Award, and by my own count, a couple of them I wasn't sure about, but by my own count, there were only about 8 or 10 traveling beat reporters among those 30 voters. And, it used to be all traveling beat reporters who did this voting. So these are guys who may not have even seen Clayton Kershaw more than once or twice, and in a lot of cases, and may not have seen Adam Wainwright more than once or twice. So it's a lot of the reasons that sometimes these votes don't come out the way the fans want them to is that the voting pool isn't what it should be. The rules of the BBWA, there's really no way to fix that. Now, the BBWA doesn't allow MLB.com reporters to be part of the BBWA. Now, these people would be the perfect people to vote on this because they see as many games as anybody. Their beat reporters don't go on every trip, but they go on about 2/3 of the trips of the teams they cover, and they're not even allowed to be in the BBWA. So, in a lot of ways, the BBWA is its own worst enemy in creating this environment.
Sounds to me like they sort of don't want to create a situation of impropriety where MLB.com might be influencing the vote in any way, which is people would start thinking that it's more of a Major League Baseball award and not a baseball writers award.
Yeah, and part of it also is there's this perception on the part of BBWA, kind of a erroneous perception, I think, that MLB.com reporters are employed by Major League Baseball, which they're not. They're employed by MLB.com, which is sort of underwritten by Major League Baseball, but it's not. Believe me, I'm around MLB.com reporters all the time. They're not given any extra access or anything like that. They're treated like every other beat reporter. So, the BWA has some antiquated ideas about certain things, and I've always sort of shaken my head at some of the ideas they cling to.
Yeah. Well, but Kershaw, of course, as the winner and as coming up on an arbitration year here, and obviously a contract negotiation, possibly. I actually have a blog coming out that we'll post tomorrow about how the Dodgers might best handle this situation, because I'm not sure they've handled it as well as they could have to this point. Kind of reminds me of another contract negotiation of the past that did not go well for the Dodgers, and the Dodgers lost a potential Hall of Fame player over it. We'll have that up tomorrow. But right now, the way Kershaw is talking, the Dodgers are not talking to him, and he would rather it be private anyway, obviously. Yeah. And so, how do you think this is going to shake down? Do you think he goes to arbitration?
Depending on how long the negotiations take, it may get to a point where they exchange numbers, and maybe there's a hearing scheduled. I don't see it going to an arbitration hearing. No, I think they're going to come to an agreement on a long-term deal at some point. I think there's just too much public pressure not to do that, and a lot of public statements have already been made. Magic Johnson, who probably shouldn't have said it, but said it at the playoffs. He said, "We're not going to go after Robinson Cano because that money is going to be spent to sign Clayton Kershaw to a long-term deal." When ownership is making public statements like that, they have every intention of signing him to a long-term deal this winter, and I think it's going to happen.
Okay, that will make Dodger fans happy, because otherwise are certainly, in my view, making a mistake, and so hopefully that won't happen. That will do it for us today on another Scribewire Q&A podcast. I'd like to thank you all for your questions. Keep those questions coming. phil.stone@dodgerscribe.com. And, of course, we love your comments on the board after our blogs. And we hope to see you next week. Tony, thanks very much, and we'll talk to you again soon.